Well, here we are.
Howdy.
There we are. I don't have any light on. It's going to be dim in this house because it's hot. I know it's not Texas hot, but it's hot enough.
Do you have the power on?
I have power. I just don't have it turned on.
They don't have the power turned on?
The no light. My overhead light. Excuse me. I'm looking at the temperature. It says 80. I think it's BS. It's a BS 80. I think it feels more like 90 degrees in my house. So the data.
That starts
I don't
to affect the
I don't
brain,
like
you
the
know.
hot humid. I don't like the hot humid. And let's see. It is where's the humidity? 64%. Yeah. Anyway, I like my air
Is
conditioning, but I'm leaving this house, right? So this is like the last couple of episodes that you're going to see in this house. And the new house
yeah, but
isn't going to
like
necessarily
you don't
have
need that
better
box.
AC. I know. Well, but when
Mm.
you buy these old houses in Flint, they don't have great mechanical and or insulation, you know. Even though this house does have some insulation and I replaced the furnace. So, um anyway, it still doesn't really get the vent is over here on the floor. It doesn't really get up to
You
this
have to
room.
have it on. You have to have it turned on. That's
It's
step
on.
1.
It's on, but it's
Oh,
as low
okay.
as I want to afford.
Mm.
I don't want to dial it any lower and spend more money on cooling this house. So, well, anyway, we're back from Boston, you know. So, what's new? What's been
Back from
you didn't
Boston. This is
stop.
the yeah, green room. Here we go. I didn't
You didn't
stop.
even
No,
stop
didn't
though.
stop.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll recap a little bit of
No.
this in the show, but yeah, you went on from Boston back to what city did you go back to? Your
I
Texas
flew to
thing?
Dallas.
Dallas.
I flew to
Yeah.
Dallas, drove back to Austin, and then we had
Was it hosted in
our
Austin?
conference.
Austin?
Yeah, it was in Austin.
Oh, so you were
So,
home, but still not home. Lots of
correct.
lots of conference things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Tink can tell you all
fair,
about
fair, fair.
dad not being home. So,
Spending time, uh, spending time with the in-laws, right? For
oh well, no,
the
well, there was
grandparents.
there was that, and then when she came back home for the retreat, like I still wasn't home. So, yeah.
Yeah, yep. Well, and now you are.
Well,
When's the next thing that you have to do?
um, nothing.
That's
I
good.
hope not for a bit.
I don't.
So,
Yeah, I don't want to do anything except for the things that
maybe a proper
are revenue
summer. I don't know.
generating opportunities. Because I need to recoup the uh, bar tabs that I took advantage of in Boston. Let's see. Anybody in the chat yet? No. Okay. We're waiting for some people to join us, right, Jamie? Unless you want to do show.
I mean, we're here,
Is the
so
tech
I think it
working?
might be. I mean, we have titles. The titles at the top for the show.
Yeah.
Is that
What?
is it ready?
Yeah, it's correct.
Do you need to typey?
No, it's correct.
Okay. I don't I don't see it. So
What are you talking about? It says it's right there. Well, there is a title. I mean, you can't do a room without a title. So
okay.
can't go live without a name. It doesn't show you the name
Well,
anymore? Did you use
right now, I feel like yeah, I'm feeling like I don't have a net.
a net, a safety net?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
like up on the high wire.
well, I'm surprised. Didn't it not have the? Didn't you always get the titles before, or or what? Did you or
That's
didn't
why
you?
I'm asking. Yeah,
No, it's there. And are you looking in the
yeah,
upper left
that's why
corner?
I'm asking.
Look in the upper left corner there.
Mhm,
That's your right. Yeah,
yeah,
it's not there. Over here. Over here.
that side. Yeah,
Just no.
um,
I updated the. It's 183. It's up there.
that's what okay,
183. It's been a long haul.
just verifying.
Trust but verify. Well, anyway, I guess then we're all in conjunction. We don't have our background music because somehow I don't know. The internet is not giving us the best data stream. I should check. I don't want to check it now because speedtest.net. But we'll see. Maybe my provider is like, oh, you're gonna move soon. Well, we're just gonna
They're like,
turn it right down. So, all right, let me hit the intro, and we'll be in the show, and then we get to talk about our conference visit. Ready?
yeah.
Hmm. Oh, hey, Jamie. You surprised me.
Oh,
Welcome to
hi.
the show. Uh-oh. Oh,
Welcome
you're
to the
okay.
show. Indeed.
I feel like the heat is getting to the data, right? The
Oh,
network.
I think the heat's getting to your maybe the little gray cells up
Your
there.
camera,
So,
your camera jittered a little bit, so we'll just leave it at that
mm,
and cross fingers that all the people are there and that they can hear us
yeah.
and see us.
Or it's just the delirium that you're living in your sweat box.
Well, I'm sweating. I'm still. I have. I've have two houses, which means I have 2 yards. I have one house that's full of boxes and one house that's empty and full of holes for electrical that's getting redone. Are you familiar with knob and tube, Jamie?
I have heard of this.
Well, this is knob.
Mhm.
This is tube. Knob and tube. Knob and tube. This is my show and tell, people. This is the scientific educational component of the show. So these are both made of ceramic because ceramic, masonry insulates electrical. Um, and yeah, so they run wires through these things, like a wire will come across, and it goes into the knob, which is nailed into the stud. And then, didn't you know you were getting the educational? You ever watch Mr. Wizard, Jamie? This is Mr. Wizard.
I'm
People
just
don't even know.
I'm
I
just
know my
hoping
students don't know.
I'm hoping that the students get this
Open.
demonstration with
Oh, I'm showing
the
them
show and tell.
the. Well, that's why my look. You hear that on the mic? Click, click, click. The That's why my electrician. He's like, here, take these with you. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm in all sorts of discombobulation because I've got a house that I'm moving into that is plaster walls that have old wiring and so on, and then the plaster work is going to cost me more than the electrical work.
But you're going to do the plaster work yourself, right?
No, no way. It's plaster, it's not drywall. We're talking about
No, I
plaster.
understand. I know, but there's like
OG.
a whole science. Like there's a science and a craft and a skill, and
Yeah,
you
which
can
I don't
embed
have.
that skill
I don't want it.
into the home. I mean,
I have a as the saying goes, I got a guy. I got a guy to do that, and he's really
okay.
good at it. He did some work in
Yeah,
this house,
I had
and
a house.
it's not cheap, but it looks good. So yeah, that's how
Yeah,
my
my first house
I've
that I
been
bought,
dealing with this
um,
for uh-huh. Guess what? Your first house was plaster?
100 years.
Uh yeah, this house is 98 years old. I think my next house is 80 something. So, yeah. Can you hear me? I think the camera is tired of us talking about plaster walls.
I think so.
Yeah, my dog is over here on the floor threatening to end it all. She also is not loving the heat,
It's
you
not.
know.
Is she doing the squirrel, the splurt? Is she doing a?
Yeah. Well, not really. Beagles just do the corpse pose sort of. Ellie, don't look at me like that. She's very sad. Wants this show to get on the road. So with that, Jamie, um, what is in the cup if you're drinking coffee in this heat?
It is the grackle, of which I might send as a care package. I don't know the new address though, so there's been no care packages because of no new addresses.
Well, I'm still in the old address for. They'll be here a while.
I
Oh,
didn't know
Ellie,
that.
what do you want?
I thought you guys had moved.
I didn't know it either. Surprise.
See,
I
there's the real answer. Yeah.
I didn't know. I didn't think it would be this long either. So I am actually paying rent to the people that bought my house for this month. Isn't that something? You know. Anywho, that's life. So Grackle, is that some
Aren't you an
carryover
architect?
from
Or you're an architect, right? You aren't you an
and
architect?
and what about it?
You're like
How's that affect
you're not
my
the only one
my
who's no. I'm just saying about the knob and tube and the house and the thing and the moving and the blah and the I don't envy it. When you told me you were doing it again, I just said an extra prayer for y'all.
I'm just pulling favors so much right now that, I just talked to my plumber friend today, I mean, that's what being an architect is that these trades, but they also don't want to always they don't not that they don't want to, but they don't always have the time to make it happen. So, um I need some plumbing done. Now that we've cut holes in everything, there's some sketchy plumbing that needs to be fixed. Oh well. Anyway, um, so I just wrapped up my last few beans. I'm gonna move on. Talk about coffee. My last few beans of my Dunkin' Donuts house blend uh, coffee beans, and I then just picked up a bag of I was at Starbucks and I got an iced coffee because it's hot, and I got the Odyssey blend. I think they call it Odyssey. I don't know if you've had the Starbucks Odyssey. So
Is
anyway,
that like the Iliad and the Odyssey?
I don't think so. I, don't- I did I,
Oh.
the bag doesn't allude to that. I think it has something to do with like one of those fundraiser kind of roasts. Like some of the money goes toward
Oh,
this thing or that.
it's going to pay for Christopher Nolan's new film about Homer.
What?
Yeah.
No. You,
Yes,
I
he's
didn't
making a
read the whole
movie
thing.
about the he's making a movie about the Odyssey.
Christopher Nolan. Okay. Okay. I'm too far away to go
He might
verify
be he might
this.
be I mean, he might be crowdsourcing his funding through every means necessary, including selling branded coffee at Starbucks worldwide, because it's an
Well, you know,
Odyssey.
have you seen the it's an Apple TV show called The Studio with Seth Rogen? Seth Rogen, right? The
I
comedian.
know it exists. I've not seen it yet.
It's very good. It's very good. Every episode actually gets better. It's very good, and it's all about the
Some-
Hollywood scene. Production of
Someone said that
shows.
same thing about Severance to me recently, trying to convince me to go back to it. So that might have been you.
Severance is good.
So
Yeah, it's probably well. I at least said that also. Yeah,
yeah,
so
we
could be other
spent a lot of
people
time
too.
together.
And we talk a lot. I talk a
Yeah,
lot
but I
about
mean, we
TV.
did spend a
People
lot of time
probably think
together
I don't do anything but
for.
watch TV. People probably think I only watch TV. So, anywho, um, we'll have to make do. I don't know if you're picking up a little bit of a delay on your end, so we'll do a little fix up in the edit and stuff. But we're kind of like over talking over each other a little bit, so hopefully on the live stream it's not too irritating to people. I don't know. You could still say stuff and then you know because it's better than not saying things. I don't want to then be talking to dead air, you know, for the next half hour. So no, pantomime is not going to help, Jamie. It, it doesn't help. Look at this dog in the back. She's unimpressed
Yeah.
with what's the is it Marcel? Who who is the famous mime? Marcel
Oh my goodness, we're
Marce
going there. Are
Marceau
we?
Marceau. Oh, I forgot. Anywho, work on your mime skills, Jamie.
Okay.
All right. Well, do we want to introduce? We were going to talk about the conference a little bit. Do we before we show some of our sketches? Oh, and I was going to green room this one other. Let me move this sketch out of the way because now we've not we've blitzed past the green room, so we might as well get into the get to the get the right images in order. But here we are. We're back from the conference. It's as if we've never left, right, Jamie? Just the next episode for all the listeners. But yeah, we're still oh nice. Nicely done. I I uh I still have to do a little bit of laundry on my end. So you can wear the t-shirt. I will wear the AI Michigan t-shirt though.
Well, I mean, you were explaining to me on our trip that you had lots of black t-shirts. You were like completely leaning into that wardrobe again. And so yeah, like let's keep it going.
Yeah.
You could do it with like you could do it for like your students, and you could do like every day. Like, can Kurt find another black T-shirt to wear sequentially throughout a summer semester?
Well, summer would be easier to pull off than a full because it's shorter and there's yeah, only one class a week. But
Oh, you only meet with them like FaceTime once a week?
yeah, I have two classes I'm teaching though. So one on Wednesday, one on Thursday, and yeah, only once in person, like once together, and then the rest of the time is in the wild, online. But yeah, so all right, shit. Let me get these sketches up here, right, Jamie, and then we can kind of walk through what we've been through in our quick Boston excursion. It always feels like there's a long week of a conference, and then by the time you're into it, it's basically over. So we were in Boston for the AI conference, which was, I don't know, in my opinion, I think one of the best ones I've been to in a long time. I don't know what you think about it. What are your thoughts there?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. I think I did it. I think that we. Um, I think that going into a conference like that. I mean, I didn't. Did you hear a final count on how many architects were in the room?
Oh, attendees? No, they didn't do a fancy announcement. Did you
I
hear anything?
I heard someone say 15,000,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
which is kind of around the typical number, and so I mean it felt big. I mean, so especially on
It felt like that, yeah.
yeah, I mean especially on sort of the day two ish. I mean, it really felt like that size wise.
Mhm.
So I'm comfortable saying that we were about that number. But yeah, I mean a conference that big in a city like that, I think it was is anchored by a lot of really interesting keynotes, a lot of good continuing education sessions, a lot of you know a lot of touring, kind of an interesting city, whether formally or informally. um, but most importantly, it's also just sort of like time with your friends and colleagues that you kind of coalesce around that event for a number of days. And I think mission accomplished for us, at least on that. I mean, we got to see quite a number of people and spend a lot of quality time. Plus, for the podcast, we also were able to do a fair amount of interviews, and then I even pulled off a special event, which I think we'll talk about as well. So, this is our AIA 25 recap episode. But yeah, hopefully kind of bookended it for folks who haven't heard one of our recaps before. I know we were doing a lot of lead up to the conference, but I think that those are sort of the big highlights.
Well, yeah, I think the I feel like I'm now a professional conference attendee, yeah, attendee. I think I've managed this year, although I was pretty tired every day. I think I managed to do 100% of, well, let's not say 100%. I think I would say 90% of the agenda of the things that were on the schedule. And including I think I socked away quite a few uh continuing education courses that I didn't expect to actually. I typically don't get into uh, enough of those, and usually spend a lot of time on the expo floor. But I actually wrangled quite a few hours this year, which is good money for the value or whatever.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
also it was convenient. I mean, we were in the conference hotel for once. It's been a number of years since we've been able to pull that off. So, convenience factor of being near kind of the epicenter of things, I think, sort of facilitated sort of both expo time as well as continuing ed time. So that was good. I'm glad that all kind of worked out. as we got our bearings, because I mean, part of it too for us, and we've talked about this a lot. If it's a city you're not necessarily familiar with, or maybe it is one that you're familiar with a little bit, but a conference like this is also about exploring, right? And
Mhm.
and not just yourself, but exploring with other people, who are, kind of the same mindset. And I think that that's sort of a fun element to this too. You kind of let different folks in your group lead for a little while, and sort of lead the crew in sort of different directions, and sort of different interests, but all of them end up being a great experience in the end. um, so yeah, there was a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Boston's a great city, and yeah, I feel like it went off really well. My shoes, shoes, high performing shoes. One can never underestimate the footwear when you're at a conference because you're spending so much time on your feet. I know that sounds really, really dry,
You sound a
but
little old. I was going to give you a little bit of kind of an ageist comment there. um,
I know, right? But when all I have to critique is the footwear, I think everything else kind of fell into place. What I'm trying to avoid is talking about karaoke, but we'll save that till later, maybe
we
toward
can
the
we
end.
can we can get that in now, or
We
we can
can
do that later.
we can end. Well, let's treat it chronologically, right? You know. So like for example, to the viewers, we have a variety of sketches and uh, things up on the screen. The first being the what we teased out before we left for the conference was that for this year for the podcast for fun, we thought it would be great to you know put the logo on a cocktail napkin. And architects like to do sketches, but also like to do sketches on cocktail napkins. Uh, well, out at a bar and talking with other architects, and so we were kind of just handing out all these cocktail napkins. And some of our friends treated them a little too preciously and wanted to like put it in their put it in their sketchbook and like hang it on the shelf. And and so we try and encourage people to just sketch. um but here, we did actually get a little cluster of great sketches on our napkins. Did you actually come home with any, Jamie? I still have a little stack.
I did come home with a couple.
I have this many, about an inch tall, maybe a half an inch. So, you know, if any of our watchers or listeners wants a well-traveled cocktail napkin with the podcast logo, just say just say so, and it might even get to you with a little sketch on it. But
Oh,
so
are you promising? You're promising stuff now? Are we
if
doing?
people ask, it will be delivered,
It
except
will.
for people whose first name starts with C and E. If you know what I mean. Just kidding. I won't exclude our friends. But what are you doing there? Are you making a drawing? Are you trying to make a drawing?
I am not making a drawing.
Oh yeah, no. Okay.
No,
Looked like you were
I was just
sketching.
double checking. I was just double checking some stuff.
The statistician over here.
I was doing, yeah. So I yeah, I of our podcast friends, I distinctly will say that we did not spend enough time with the Archispeak gentlemen. They seem to they were on walkabout a lot more than us, but in sort of a completely different section of the
Well,
conference. It felt like we
well,
we
I
did
bumped into
intersect.
them on the expo floor.
We did intersect on the expo floor.
Yeah.
Um,
They also are on another echelon than we are because they were getting, fancy dinner invites, which what kept them from our podcast meetup. So
yeah,
maybe next year
I mean,
we
they're.
take it up a notch.
I mean, we're doing well. we're doing well with the podcast. But those guys they're the OG podcast, and they've been, with all due respect to them, they've been doing this a while, and in a good way. So yeah, it was nice to see them. I would have loved to spend a little bit more time with them. So
As always. Well, I think when you see somebody at a conference, I think that's always the common, at least I think just catching somebody for a few minutes is basically, I mean, it's always better than 0 minutes, but like just by catching them, it 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 checks the box sort of in a way. You've made that touch point. And then if you get to spend any extra time, then it's like icing on the cake there. But yeah, I know what you mean though. It's a a busy week for everyone. So
but we did. So,
yeah.
like, again, conference. So we're gonna just sort of drop these little conference nuggets in here as we move along with our recap. So some of the thing is, if you go to a conference, and we know that we have a lot of students or even professionals who haven't gone to national. Maybe they've gone to their regional or state conference or local conference if they have a conference like that. Texas, of course, we've got conferences coming out of everywhere. It's nuts. But the national one is real special for a lot of the reasons Kurt and I have already described. But the other thing too with the expo is that you have a lot of product representatives that are there, to both not necessarily sell you things, but to kind of explain who they are, make connections. They're trying to do the networking on the floor related to their products, especially if they're ones that you aren't as familiar with, or if they've got a new rollout of something. But there's also sort of taking it up to another level of, it's, attention span, right? And so some of them have to do kind of really innovative pop-ups. Arguably one of the best ones still for me from this last one was where we saw Cormac and Evan, was, at the Anderson window pop-up with the coffee, totally on brand for our podcast, and the like mini Stanley Cup mug, for your little mini cappuccino or latte or whatever.
Yeah, reusable. Yeah, definitely 100% favorite spot, I think, for most of us. I was just spreading the word. I was like, "Oh, you better make it over to Anderson." Plus they had this giant glass door on display, which was pretty sweet. But yeah, the lots of good. I had a lot of good conversations. There's still a bunch of emails I need to follow up on, um, with some people that want to join the podcast, uh, from Vectorworks, and I still have to do some editing for the SketchUp conversation we had, which that's in the works. So that'll be kind of like a follow up to this episode. Um, and I think there was like I'll have to check the email, but there's some other people that had some interest in
Didn't we do a
talking.
meetup? Didn't we get some B-roll from a meetup where we talked to some folks? I think we might have done that. Are we going to talk about that today? We might mention that.
The wait, well now I'm now now I'm lost. You lost me. Well, you bring it up when appropriate. Or maybe it'll hit me. There's so many things swimming in my head about the conference. I'm still trying to think about. I mean, I know for sure on this other tab here, there's like a bunch of emails that need to be followed up on.
So
Um, yeah.
I'm just gonna set the scene for folks. Kind of mid episode right now is that Kurt is in the midst of a move. So, he's got two houses and he's got lots of stuff going on. If you missed the knob and tube at the very beginning of this episode, there are props. And so it's a real thing, right? There's home reno and a move all going on at the same time. He also went to Boston for a week and went to this conference with like 14,999 other architects. And of which the national president, who happens to be a friend of ours, killed it on stage. She was fantastic. I thought Evelyn's speech, and typically the president doesn't kind of get that kind of opportunity. I mean, they always have really great opportunities to provide remarks, but I think in the context of the way they scheduled that out, I thought that was really, really brilliant in terms of scheduling and sort of planning that portion of that sort of day two piece, because it, she was able to deliver some really kind of important remarks, kind of packaged for herself and sort of what she's been focused on and what she feels like the institute's focused on right now, and then sort of was able to pivot to bring on, former Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, to have a really kind of wonderful conversation on stage. And so I thought that whole segment was just, I was so happy for her. So proud of her for, as a friend, and for her in that moment. But I thought that the sort of the remarks, from both, including the conversation with Mayor Pete, I mean, I think was really, really inspiring and special. What did you think?
Oh yeah, I mean the the I mean I was so looking forward to Pete Buttigieg as once they announced him. So and he didn't disappoint, and I think it was awesome that they chose to do it as a Q&A, and that gives Evelyn a chance to spend some time on stage because when you it sounds exciting to be AI. I don't know if anybody's not familiar with the leadership track at National, but when you're president of AI National, there's a lot on the agenda for that year or 2 years that you're kind of like in the mix. Um, but then they don't always spend as much FaceTime, say, on stage. So when they get a little chance to do a Q&A, and you get to sort of soak it in, I would imagine. I'm sure Evelyn was sort of absorbing that whole experience. But yeah, it was great. And Pete was great. And I've been following him on Instagram. I don't know, I'm sure you do too. And he's not lacking an opinion about the state of affairs. And he stuck to his he's true to himself. And I can't complain because he's a fellow Michigander now, right? So he lives in Michigan, Traverse City area. And yeah, I mean, I also was super excited for all the keynotes. We had a really diverse, as you said, uh, spectrum of speakers. Somebody who's an expert and leader in um, AI technology, um, uh, information, and what's the word, education, and then a social media, a YouTube architect, um, alternative career path, and Damie Lee, and doing all kinds of interesting. It was a giant YouTube following. I mean, I was actually super overwhelmed with the stats. Yeah, being that we do a podcast, and we put it on YouTube, and but I mean, we pale in comparison to Damie Lee's uh, you know video focused, not a podcast, but her YouTube channel, which is grown so fast. And yeah, it was really exciting, all of it. And and then just like you said, yeah, going back to being able to bump into Evelyn a few times and kind of catch up, like little checkpoints along the week. And one thing, I didn't want to lead with this because it's not all about this, but if you saw one of AI Architect's email blasts after the conference, did you see the one where Evelyn and Pete are sitting on stage, and Evelyn, chose to wear her Adidas,
Oh yeah.
uh, Adidas sneakers, Adidas, and they're it's quite, it was quite a killer outfit, you know, po- uh, tied up with Evelyn and you share the love of soccer. Well, I don't. I'm not saying I don't love, but you guys have a different love as a player
Yeah.
of the sport, and so I thought that was kind of cool. Did
Yeah.
did you hear? You know, I don't want this will probably embarrass Evelyn when she hears this, but did she tell you about the hairdo? Were you there when she was talking about the
No, I
hairdo?
didn't get to hear about the hairdo.
She's gonna hate this, but when we were afterward, uh, that same day, right? So she's in the same outfit she was interviewing Pete in. We saw her. A few of us, I guess, saw her. You must have been on a tour, and she said, "Oh, well," she told the stylist when she got backstage. She's like, "I want something a little edgy," and so they kind of did it up with a nice sort of sculpted ponytail thing, and I thought it was pretty,
I mean,
pretty
it.
cool.
I think she looked great. I mean, the dress, the Adidas. I think the whole thing. Being on stage by yourself in that kind of a room to deliver remarks like she did, sort of almost a state of architecture, kind of where we are and kind of her thoughts on it and kind of her place in it. I think, kind of her, who she is, I think was really, really special. But then, like you said, Pete didn't hold back. I mean, didn't disappoint. And I think, it was really, really great. He also was able to slide in like a subtle shout out to our friend Claris.
Yeah, I I was gonna bring it up if you didn't bring it up. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, and not that Claris had made the remark, in meeting
His
Pete,
reference.
because
Yeah,
yes, his reference to riding in the elevator with somebody who maybe didn't agree with his political, you know, um, party affiliation, but respected him for his intellect and his, passion for service and kind of what he was doing, um, and applauded that in that kind of elevator moment. That was Claris's coworker.
yeah.
Claris was able to, relay all this to you and I in a text message, which at first we did not believe, but um,
Yeah, yeah, it's very funny. And yeah, my jaw dropped when he cited that interaction because I knew exactly
oh
who he
yeah,
was talking about.
yeah, we like
Uh,
all of us. Exactly. Right. Perfect.
how
Perfect.
funny! I mean, I think most people probably this episode's sort of turning into a little bit of a anecdotal recap in my at least from what I'm doing. I know you're trying to get us back into a little bit of a focus, but my I think to me the sort of reflects on across the whole week and the various uh, um, activities, right? Whether it's keynote visiting, expo floor, catching up with friends and colleagues and fellow architects. Um, I think it really had a whole. It just had all these sort of significant uh, memories for me that I think what makes it a really strong and lasting particular conference compared to many of the other ones. I mean, we're kind of regulars at this point.
Except the fact that like I was dropping all the hints, and we're gonna go there right now. I was dropping all the
Uh,
hints, and you were not picking up the breadcrumbs.
no.
Like you weren't. I mean, what I was trying to say is the Coffee Sketch podcast, in addition to the napkins and the sketches, we also held a little meetup. We tried to be ambitious, folks, in the spirit of our friends from She Builds podcast. Shout out to them. We've got some plans. We've already got plans in the works with them. So we will not say much more about that at this point because both of us are terrible about keeping secrets. But we will just say it was great to see them. Took inspiration from them last year at conference and decided to do a little bit of an informal meetup, which included sort of a trip to the ICA, which did not disappoint. And so we'll go there. But before we do, let's go to the sketch up on the upper right.
Mhm. Mhm.
So this was a napkin that I gave out. um, when I was talking with Jeff. Um, and Jeff was standing there talking to somebody that I have known for years from the interwebs. Have not ever met him in person that I can recall before this. Have had sort of the internet kind of conversations that you do with those folks online who are in your discipline. We've talked about this on the podcast. But Mark Gardner is an architect and a professor at Parsons, and clearly can sketch like a demon. Loved it. Gave him this. Gave him the coffee. Gave him the cocktail sketch, and he was immediately like, "Do I need to do it now, or can I draw a little bit later and take a picture and send it to you?" And I was like, "That will work." So,
Mhm.
um, just completely understood what we were doing, and just and loved every minute of it. So it was great to see him, and he gets the award for being the first to post, and so and clearly, like you were saying before, did not kind of get in the weeds on their sketch, and didn't get in their head on it. And he was just like, I'm just going to have fun with this and sort of sketch, purely cocktail napkin sketch, kind of some thoughts about some architecture, some little entourage in there as well, which I love. Um, and I'm going to ask you, Kurt, kind of what pen do you think this is? Because I'm kind of digging it.
Oh, I was actually just thinking the same thing. Well, I mean, you were there, right? Oh no, he did
No,
it. He
no,
did it.
he did
He
it
did it
after. Yeah,
away, right?
yeah, yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it has to be something. Well, you used the uh 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 what you call it? Oh my God, a V0 or V7 or a
yeah. Mhm.
V5, right? A pilot.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and I was gonna say, no, this
His
thing hit
his has a lot more kind of like
bleed.
ink, yeah, a little more bleed, but like it's a controlled bleed, which I
It could be one of the felt, a little bit felty tip
mm,
versions, but I used a fountain pen, and so I don't know. It had some interesting, pressure matters, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so and I don't remember what Brian used. Do you? What
Um,
he had?
he has a fountain pen too, I believe. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
um no, but this was cool. Yeah, it was nice to see the very first of the conference uh posted on with the our hashtag that we use, the coffee sketch hashtag. So yeah, a nice little kickoff for the week. And but yeah, uh, so the ICA meetup. So we decided to choose. I've always wanted to visit the ICA, which is the Contemporary Arts Museum in Boston, with designed by Diller and Scofidio in the years before Renfro was part of the title, but the same firm. Um, and a lot of aspects of the ICA uh, were stunning. The details. It's not a huge building, but it's actually, well, I mean, it's kind of a square, right? It's essentially it's a fairly sort of vertical cube, except for the very cascading staircase that sort of emerges from, say, the second floor down to the waterfront. Um, but it still has quite a bit of gallery space, and then these sort of voids, I'll call it. I was thinking about when sitting there for a little bit, and the elevator shaft is this very monumental elevator. It's very glassy, and it's sort of the freight elevator that can move large pieces of art, but also very glassy and sort of transparent and
and
visible.
and fun fact, a way to ditch your friends in the gallery and then surprise pop out where you're in the elevator and they're still on the first level trying to figure out where you guys went.
Yeah. Well, I got a text that said turn around. We're in the elevator. It is so, but it sort of creates this vertical shaft through the center of the cube, and then there. uh, the building itself, is very bilaterally symmetrical, right? You slice it in half, and it would look very similar on both sides along the staircase component, and then there's this void that turns horizontal or 90 degrees to all that, which faces the water, right? So there's this sort of bar of of this viewing space out to the water, and then there's the vertical glassy elevator that's a sort of void. And so it while we were sitting there, it kind of dawned on me the sort of, actually I might have, there's actually kind of a hint of the diagram. It's a little fuzzy. Um, but a sort of accent to the building is like there's a lot of this accentuated staircase, but sort of might make people think, oh, it's all about that one thing, but it actually is interesting composition of these cuboid rectangular volumes, right? These void spaces.
Well, and it's funny you say that because I think the I hadn't thought about sort of that viewing that horizontal viewing room, where you caught a really good sneaky photo of me by the glass, which I appreciate. But as you're describing sort of that horizontal sort of glass void, that sort of is conscious of its location on the building to the site. It's looking out. It's a view. It's another viewing deck, which effectively is a hallway, right? It's a hallway
Mhm.
connecting two sides of the gallery. Also gives you a spot to kind of rest for a moment, and then there's some restrooms right there. But it's a really elegantly done kind of space. And then that is above the smaller viewing platform, the little triangular piece, that was also captured in a sketch. My sketch, but also one of the sketches that was done kind of in the space. I think Chris did that one,
Mhm.
and the I think the thing that sort of struck me as you were describing it was there's these sort of spatial moments. This is me jargoning a bit, but it's like there's these they end there, but they're all suspended. It's like when you're in those spaces, you kind of feel like you're suspended within this, larger cube. You've entered a cube, and you've either ascended the steps or you've come in the lobby and you've gone up the glass elevator. And so you're in this sort of box, this sort of, kind of interesting modern cube. But then there's these moments where you stop and you're not looking at the art and you're sort of recognizing that you're sort of in this space. You're looking out. And in those moments, you're kind of suspended.
Mhm.
And I think it's sort of a really clever thing that the architect is sort of playing with it a bit. I don't know if that's completely intentional, but knowing Diller and Scafidio's work around that time, where they were, um, you know, sort of playing with the idea of
Mhm. Mhm.
surveillance and sort of, sort of the idea of sort of prospect and
Mhm.
refuge, and sort of being in a space and observing another space, and all those types of things. I think has some elements of that. I think there's some DNA of that, in this building, in a way that I had not really read the building that way before.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a prime example of like the reason we always tell our students to go visit the building yourself. Don't just look at it in a picture. I think these readings kind of are only solidified by your experience of the space. And yeah, I think, yeah, it, it it may seem like a strange object on the landscape, by the waterfront, but I mean it really is packed full of very functional interior spaces, but also very deliberate, as you put it. These suspended moments for view and resting and things like that. So I mean, yeah, it was a great choice. credit to one of us that picked that as a meetup spot, and then uh, but extra points to Jamie for figuring out that that was a first Friday of the month, which then ICA hosts these first Friday parties, which this month's theme was Rococo a Go Go, which included a kind of a drag show in on the deck facing the water, uh, and then the interior of that second floor was like this giant. Uh, it's a big gallery, sort of theater. Well, I would say multimedia space probably. And then there was a DJ and a bar and a lot of people, and it was cool. Lighting and I've been showing the students the lighting and acoustic effects of the space, but the yeah, that was a added bonus. Just having so we met up just adjacent to the ICA, recorded a podcast, so we have that to edit as well, and then met up with some of our fellow podcast friends, viewing the ICA from a distance, capturing a sketch, and then moving into the space. So it was really nice, sort of processional experience. We didn't just show up at the door, walk in, walk out, and disappear. You had a nice way to spend some time with it. So it's definitely a highlight for me. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, went to an architecture conference, decided to do a podcast meetup of designers, showed up to podcast meetup of designers, and podcast meetup of designers turned into a drag show. So, you know,
Did you did you
that's,
did you notice our friends from She Builds? They got espresso martinis because
oh
coffee
yeah,
beans, coffee.
oh yeah,
They're
they are
they're
always
more on it on top of it than I am.
sometimes,
It was very
sometimes,
nice. It was
but
very touching. I enjoyed the chance to spend some more time with them because we're just getting familiar with their work and their presence at the conferences. So yeah, so much fun. Well, was there? Oh, well, aside from karaoke, was there anything else that you wanted to talk about while we were at ICA?
no, all I'm saying is that you have now, you know, shared with your architecture friends, and your co-host that Kurt might really enjoy the karaoke. And so he also, folks, has an alias, which we're not going to reveal in this episode because there is an opportunity to have a two-parter. We typically do the AI 25 with a sort of a part one and part two. I'm going to leave that part for part two.
Yeah,
And
some
just,
follow-ups.
as a tease. It's a tease. It's a tease. This is what they call the tease.
Yeah, sorry, my screen is getting dim, but yeah,
They're turning off the
pow-
power. It looks like they're turning off the power.
power's going to. So yeah, so I'll only say about, and I'll we'll dig in a little deeper about the karaoke. Is that I we also travel in another circle of friends called Entree Architect, and there's a good handful of them that like a good Friday night karaoke. And we had a couple of friends, Chris and Erica, who were locals, original Bostonians, or I don't know if that's the
It
it
sounds right to
works.
me.
That knew of a karaoke bar in downtown that that was their college day haunt, and
Clearly, the fire marshal did not know about this place because there was a lot of people in there. It was very
occupant
small.
load might have been exceeded. It was
Might have
that
been
style
exceeded.
of, but then back up to one more technical anecdote is we ate dinner, Jamie, Claris, and I, just before karaoke after ICA. at an Irish pub, and the decibel level reading in the Irish pub was actually louder than it was in the karaoke bar.
Yet the fish and chips was
Well,
fabulous.
yeah.
So
I don't
I
think
mean, the food was great.
the
I mean,
karaoke bar had
that
they
little
were walking around with like sort of uh, uh, a, a buffet of skewers, chicken on a stick.
there was a lot of skewers. Like there was a lot of skewers at that place. I'm not sure where they were
Uh,
coming from, but
yeah, it was.
yeah,
But yeah, I was full from the fish and chips, so
yeah.
I respectfully declined. But yeah, so I I think I think we can call this recap part one, and we'll sort of save it as the fun sort of uh uh a brain dump, I guess, for lack of a better term, but the sort of let's let's put it all out there, and then we have a few other things that we'll technically get into. But as always, Jamie, every year we manage to do better, and this was.
We outdid ourselves again.
So I don't
So
know how
yeah,
we're gonna top it
agreed.
next year, but I know we will.
Well, next
Oh
year
yeah.
it's going to be kind of like Highlander, right? Where like, is that Highlander? No, that's not. Yeah, well, maybe. Folks who are just joining the podcast for the first time and maybe have missed some of the earlier season 1 episodes, Kurt's an identical twin.
Yeah, and next year we'll be in San Diego, where said twin lives.
So
So that'll
Jamie
be a hoot.
has met said twin, but only through this medium that we have here.
Oh yeah.
So I did argue about needing a proof of life kind of situation, and now I'm actually going to meet Charlie. So shout out to Charlie, who's also does a lot of the sound for the podcast. But yeah, next year we will totally top ourselves from this year. So there's always count on that.
Yep. Yep. All right. Thanks, friend.
Yep.